trade tensions, China's state media equating U.S. imposed tariffs to, quote, extortion, as the U.S. plans to tax an additional $16 billion worth of goods. President Trump promising to stay the course on his trade plans. We don't have that sound. Tennessee Congressman Chuck Fleischmann is here. He's also on the House Appropriations Committee. Congressman, China in part calling Trump's trade plans a Street Fighter-style deceitful drama of extortion and intimidation. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that's unduly harsh rhetoric on the part of the Chinese, but let's face it, President Trump has had a tremendous impact on this entire trade debate, and I think he's winning. He's had an effect on the Chinese markets. And President Trump wants to protect our intellectual property, and he wants us to win. So in a nutshell, I didn't expect them to remain silent. This is an ongoing negotiation process, and it'll play itself out.
Trump, he was confident on tariffs over the weekend. He was not only talking about them in a rally, but he was also tweeting this, Congressman. Tariffs are working big time. Every country on earth wants to take wealth out of the United States, always to our detriment. I say as they come, tax them. If they don't want to be taxed, let them make or build the product in the U.S. In either event, it means jobs and great wealth. Because of tariffs, we will be able to start paying down large amounts of the $21 trillion in debt that's been accumulated, much by the Obama administration, while at the same time reducing taxes for our people. At minimum, we will make much better trade deals for our country. Congressman, what I find astonishing about that is a tariff is a tax. It's a tax ultimately if that is passed on to the U.S. consumer. It's already starting to happen, whether it's Coca-Cola or Polaris or Winnebago raising prices. So how astonishing is it that you have a Republican bragging about tax increases?
Well, let me say this. I have long been a strong proponent, supporter of free trade. My great state, Tennessee, has benefited in the agricultural sector, in the manufacturing sector, from free trade. I think we have to look at every arsenal in the toolbox. I've never really been a fan of tariffs. I think there are other ways to go. However, the president has felt that in a country-by-country, region-by-region area, he has to look at this. This is a negotiation process. Let's face it. I think the president's goal ultimately is to remove tariffs everywhere. That's what we want to see. Some countries, particularly China, have put up such burdensome tariffs that they basically stack the deck. And the imbalance, the trade imbalance, short-term and long-term, has been so difficult. So it's a process. It's an ongoing process. Let's hope we get to where we were with the EU, where both sides say, let's work towards a system where ultimately all tariffs go away.
The U.S. meantime is pushing for stronger penalties against hackers who disrupt the electrical grid. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen emphasizing infrastructure's greatest threat. Listen to this.
The biggest threat in my mind is if we don't partner. So what we see the adversaries doing is they're crowdsourcing. So they're using bots, they're using paid influencers, they're using their governments, they're using anyone and everyone that can attack us. So the biggest threat is if we don't work together to counter that.
Congressman, I want to get your reaction, then I'm going to get Mike Baker in here. But again, this is a long time coming, and quite frankly, those in Washington have been turning a blind eye to basically threatening behavior in terms of putting our electrical grid at risk from the likes of Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea.
Well, I'm privileged to serve on the House Appropriations Committee and specifically on the Homeland Security Subcommittee on Appropriations. And we have had robust funding to fight cybersecurity or to support fighting the attacks by foreign nations on our cybersecurity system. Let's face it, cybersecurity is national security. With all of our technological advances, and they've been outstanding, it has still made us vulnerable to attack. So House Republicans have done their job. The administration is doing its job. But this is an all-out cybersecurity war. We've got to defend our grid. We've got to defend our property. And cybersecurity is very critically important. And there are a lot of bad actors engaging in this.
But, Mike, they talk in Washington, but they don't walk. They don't step. They don't get off there and do something about it. This has been going on for years.
Yeah, Congressman, Mike Baker here, if I could just say a couple of things. I think we're really late to the game on this one. It's been well over a decade that you could ask anybody in the intel and security community, what keeps them up at night, and it would be an attack on the power grid. The power grid basically is the East grid, the West grid, and Texas. Texas gets its own grid, and it's a patchwork quilt. But we've known, there have been major assessments and studies. We've known for a long time that this has been a problem, and that state-sponsored elements and others hostile to us have been mapping and probing and targeting and looking at the grid. So I guess a couple of questions. One, why now instead of quite some time ago hasn't this become a priority? And I know that things happen off the radar screen and that we don't see what's going on oftentimes up on Capitol Hill. But do you think we've been late to the game? And is this something we can actually get bipartisan support on? And is there money to resolve this? The grid was never set up to withstand a physical or a cyber attack.
There is tremendous bipartisan support for cybersecurity. There's no question about that. We have seen that with the votes on the funding. I want to commend the administration. President Trump and Vice President Pence have set up a special commission to deal with this. So there is a prioritization. I would say this. There is so much that goes on in the classified space. There are protections out there, fortunately, that we've been working on a long time. However, it moves. This is something that's not static. Our enemies that would engage in cybersecurity attacks are always changing. So what is good to protect today is not necessarily going to be good tomorrow. So we've got to be vigilant, diligent. We've got to put the dollars up to defend against this. Do we need to do a better job? Absolutely. Are we addressing this in a bipartisan, bicameral, and executive way? Yes, I think so.
Congressman, thank you for being here. Congressman Chuck Fleischmann, much to talk about. Thank you so much.